Imagine finding footprints in the snow leading to your house, but none leading back out. 4 days later, everyone inside was dead. March 1922. Deep in the forests of Bavaria, Germany, stood an isolated farm called Hinterkaifeck. It was so remote that the nearest neighbors were nearly a mile away. At first, nothing seemed unusual until the family noticed a single line of footprints appearing in the fresh snow. The tracks came from the forest and stopped at the farmhouse. There were no footprints leaving. The family searched the property but found no one. Days later, strange things began to happen. They heard slow footsteps above the ceiling every night, as if someone was walking inside the attic. Tools disappeared without explanation. A newspaper none of them had ever bought suddenly appeared on the kitchen table. The maid became so terrified that she quit, claiming the farm was haunted. She refused to spend another night there. The family stayed anyway. Then, just days before everything changed forever, the young daughter discovered that the house keys had mysteriously vanished. No broken doors, no signs of forced entry. Whoever was watching them might already have had a way inside. The family tried to convince themselves that everything had a logical explanation. Maybe the footsteps came from loose wooden beams. Maybe the missing keys had simply been misplaced. But then, another chilling discovery shattered every excuse. One morning, Andreas Gruber climbed into the attic after hearing movement again. He searched every corner with a lantern. There was no one there, yet scattered across the dusty floor were fresh signs that someone had recently been inside. Whoever it was had disappeared without leaving a trace. The strange events only grew worse. Neighbors later reported seeing smoke rising from the farmhouse chimney at unusual hours, even when the family wasn't expected to be awake. Someone had also been feeding the cattle and caring for the animals, as if an unseen person was living on the property. Then came the final ordinary day. On the evening of March 31st, 1922, one by one, members of the Gruber family were somehow lured from the warm farmhouse into the dark barn. None of them realized they were walking toward the same terrifying fate, and someone was already waiting in the shadows. No one knows exactly what happened inside the barn that night. Investigators believe the killer didn't attack everyone at once. Instead, each family member was drawn outside separately. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness. The silence was so complete that no nearby neighbors heard a single scream. Days passed before anyone realized something was terribly wrong. The family's mail remained untouched. The 6-year-old daughter never arrived at school. The farm's deliveries were left sitting outside. When neighbors finally decided to check on the Gruber family, they expected to find an accident. Instead, they walked into one of the most horrifying crime scenes in German history. Inside the barn lay the bodies of Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and young Cecilia. The farmhouse was even more heartbreaking. The family's 2-year-old son, Joseph, and the new maid had also been killed. But the nightmare didn't end there. Evidence suggested the murderer never left after the killings. Someone had stayed inside the farmhouse for days, feeding the animals, cooking meals, keeping the fire burning, and living among the dead as though nothing had happened. Police believed they were chasing a killer who had vanished into the forest, but the evidence told a far more disturbing story. Neighbors later admitted they had seen smoke rising from the farmhouse chimney for several days after the murders. Bread had been freshly sliced. Warm meals had been prepared. The cows had been milked, and the animals were fed on schedule. Someone had even cleaned parts of the property. That meant one terrifying thing. The murderer had calmly remained at Hinterkaifeck, living in the farmhouse with 6 victims lying only a few steps away. Investigators searched every room, every corner of the attic, and every inch of the surrounding woods. They questioned hundreds of people. Several suspects were identified, but every lead collapsed under closer examination. There were no fingerprints that solved the case, no confession that could be trusted, and no witness who saw the killer leave. As the years passed, rumors spread across Germany. Some believed the murderer was someone the family knew. Others believed the killer had secretly been watching the farm for weeks before striking. More than a century later, one terrifying question still has no answer. Who was living inside Hinterkaifeck after everyone was already dead? The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the darkest unsolved crimes in history. Over the next century, investigators reopened the case several times. Modern forensic experts reviewed old evidence, interviewed descendants, and re-examined every known suspect. Yet despite all the advances in science, no one could prove who committed the murders. The most terrifying part wasn't just how 6 innocent people died, it was what happened after. Whoever committed the crime appeared to stay at the farm for days. They cooked meals in the kitchen, fed the livestock, kept the fireplace burning, and walked freely through the silent farmhouse while the victims remained undiscovered. It was as if the killer wanted the world to believe the family was still alive, buying time before anyone came looking. In 2007, German police announced they believed they had identified a likely suspect, but there was not enough evidence to officially solve the case. To this day, the name has never been confirmed in court, and the murders remain officially unsolved. The old Hinterkaifeck farmhouse no longer exists. It was demolished nearly a century ago, but the mystery never disappeared, because somewhere in the snow, there were footprints leading to the house, and no footprints ever leading back